Good morning, investors. You are now on KleverStock with me, Anunjaria, serving you the latest morning bell updates. Kicking it off with the opening bell updates on our local market. Bursa Malaysia opened higher today, extending yesterday's gains, supported by continued buying interest in selected heavyweights amid cautious sentiments on the global economy outlook, a dealer said. At 9:10 a.m., the FPM KLCI rose 2.81 points to 1,587.77 from yesterday's close of 1,584.96. The benchmark index opened 2.47 points firmer at 1,587.43. The market breadth is positive, with advancers leading decliners 204 to 109, while 295 counters were unchanged, 1,978 untraded, and 6 suspended. Turnover stood at 120.18 million shares worth 77.49 million ringgit. In a note, Malacca Securities India Berhad expects the local market to remain in its cautious mode and trade mixed in the near term, tracking the mixed sentiments on the global market. It said Wall Street ended mixed, with investors digesting United States-US President Donald Trump's meeting with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in Washington, while waiting for US Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's Jackson Hole speech on rate cut outlook. Trump has pledged U.S. security support for Ukraine, but hinted that Crimea would remain with Russia, while also raising the prospect of trilateral talks with Putin. Among the heavyweights, Maybank was 6 cents higher at 9 ringgit 84 cent. Tenaga Nasional added 4 cents to 13 ringgit and 66 cents, and CIMB improved 1 cent to 7 ringgit and 34 cent, while Public Bank and IHH Healthcare were flat at 4 ringgit 46 cent and 6 ringgit 82 cent respectively. On the actively traded list, TWL Holdings was flat at 2.5 cents, Medtronic earned half a cent to 1.5 cents, and Toyo Ventures went up 2 cents to 37 cents, while Steelhawk slipped 1 cent to 56 cents. On the broader market, the FPM AMMB index advanced 21.46 points to 11,800.26. The FPMT 100 index gained 21.57 points to 11,584.16. The FPM AMMB Sharia index secured 19.40 points to 11,713.03, and the FPM Mid 70 index rose 35.97 points to 16,710.54, while the FPM ACE index bagged 7.91 points to 4,722.13. By sector, the Financial Services Index climbed 35.23 points to 18,165.60. The Plantation Index fell 16.11 points to 7,518.66. The Energy Index edged up 3.26 points to 741.61. And the Industrial Products and Services Index earned 0.17 of a point to 158.20. We should now look at the performance of our local currency. The ringgit rebounded to open slightly higher against US dollar and the major currencies, despite the US dollar's uptrend amidst the United States-Ukraine talk, said an analyst. At 8 a.m., the local note inched up to 4.2190 or 4.2320 from Monday's close of 4.2200 or 4.2240. Fed Muamalat Malaysia Berhad Chief Economist Dr. Muhammad Afzaniza Abdul Rashid said investors are focusing on the ongoing discussion between US President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, as well as the upcoming US Federal Reserve's Fed interest rate decision next month. Yesterday, it was reported that Trump met with Zelensky before holding talks with the leaders of Britain, Germany, France, Italy, Finland, the European Union, and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. He said the US dollar index DXY is climbing ahead of the US Fed's meeting minutes and Jackson's Whole Economic Symposium this week. It appears that the traders and investors are waiting for more indications whether the U.S. Central Bank will cut the policy rates in the upcoming meeting in September. Meanwhile, the ringgit opened higher against a basket of major currencies this morning. It strengthened versus the Japanese yen to 2.8520 or 2.8610, improved against the British pound to 5.6986 or 5.7162, and increased vis-a-vis the euro to 4.9227 or 4.9379. At the same time, the local note traded mixed against other ASEAN currencies. It rose versus the Singapore dollar to 3.2845 or 3.2949 and gained against the Thai baht to 12.9648 or 13.0127. However, the local currency remained almost flat vis-a-vis the Philippine peso at 7.40 or 7.43 and performed similarly against the Indonesian rupiah at 260.4 or 261.3. Now moving on to economic updates. Malaysia's economy is demonstrating resilience in the face of global uncertainties, but experts warn that sustained growth will hinge on diversification, adaptive policies, and strong domestic demand. Putra Business School Professor Dr. Ahmad Razman Abdul Latif said the country's gross domestic product GDP growth depends on its ability to diversify the economy, implement timely policy responses, and integrate globally through trade agreements. While geopolitical tensions and supply chain disruptions can slow growth in the short term via inflationary pressures and reduce trade, political stability, robust domestic demand, adaptive supply chains, and effective policies can cushion these impacts and support medium to long-term resilience. Echoing this view, Socioeconomic Research Center SERC Executive Director Lee Heung-gi said that despite a moderation in growth, with real GDP averaging 4.4% in the first half of 2025, Malaysia remains on track to meet Bank Negara Malaysia's revised full-year GDP estimate of 4.0 to 4.8%. He cautioned that the second half of 2025 and 2026 will be challenging as trade uncertainties and U.S. tariffs continue to weigh on exports. Lee said domestic demand will have to be hold firm amid rising costs of living and increased business costs. Positive labor market conditions and continued cash handouts will help the targeted B40 and low-income households. While the ongoing implementation of projects and realization of approved investments are expected to keep positive investment momentum, it is to be expected some investors may adopt a wait-and-see approach to commit investment given the shift in trade policy due to the U.S. sweeping tariffs policy. UDKL Business School Economic Analyst Associate Professor Dr. Aimi Zuhaimi Abdul Rashid said fiscal and monetary policies must be aligned to ensure the economy expands as planned. If the government adopts an expansionary fiscal policy with a large budget to stimulate development, Bank Negara's monetary policy should complement it by ensuring access to cheaper funds for businesses and consumers. Aimi Zuhaimi said, consequently, business and consumers' expenditure will rise as well as fiscal spending by the government. These two components are significant contributors to the GDP growth. This will be able to balance the other two components of GDP, the shrinking trade surplus and the actual flow of FDI into the country, which are not in the government control directly. Aimi Zuhaimi said external trade is heavily influenced by international developments such as geopolitical tensions and major economies' trade policies as seen with the recent tariff changes under Trump. He said global trade slowed down to 2.5% in 2025, providing the slowest decade growth since the 1960s. He added Malaysia, among the top 30 trading nations, is highly vulnerable to global events, with GDP growth disrupted during the pandemic years 2020 to 2021, and then again in 2023 with only 3.6%. The growth in 2023 was influenced by a challenging external environment, including slower global trade and a global tech down cycle. However, domestic demand and a resilient external position supported by the economy. And now moving on to corporate news updates. 99 SPEEDMART Retail Holdings Berhad's net profit jumped 22% in the second quarter, supported by its growing outlet network and stronger transaction volumes. Its net profit rose to 153 million ringgit for the quarter ended June 30, 2025, from 125.5 million ringgit in the same period last year, with a revenue of 2.7 billion, 1.9% higher from 2.4 billion previously. In a statement, the mini-market chain retailers said the earnings were driven by a net addition of 248 new outlets to 2,894 from 2,646 shops in the second quarter last year. Total sales transaction climbed 13.2% to 128.9 million transactions, with an average basket of 21 ringgit. For the cumulative 6 months, 99 SPEEDMART'S revenue grew 9.8% to 5.3 billion from 4.8 billion ringgit, with the net profit stood at 296 million ringgit, up 14.6% from the 258.7 million ringgit. Founder and Chief Executive Officer Lee Tiam Wah said the consistent expansion strategy and focus on enhancing shopper experience through greater convenience and accessibility supported the robust results. As part of our long-term value strategy, we have rolled out the enduring 4 items for 10 ringgit series nationwide, with dedicated everyday value zones in our stores. It featured at least 40 curated products across key categories to offer greater value and support cost-conscious households in managing their daily needs. He added, "We believe this series not only resonates with the shopping habits of certain customers, but also encourages overall spending." Looking ahead, we remain optimistic in our sustainable growth trajectory, supported by ongoing footprint expansion and innovative retail programs designed to meet the evolving needs of our customers. And finally, wrapping up, we have major corporate developments and deals across Malaysia. Genting Plantations Berhad has proposed to undertake a joint venture JV with Shu Guang Vegetable Science and Technology Sdn Berhad to develop approximately 70 acres of land in Kulai, Johor as a centre of excellence in tropical vegetable crops. UMEDIC Group Berhad has increased its manufacturing capacity by doubling it with the unveiling of its expansion at Batu Kawan Industrial Park, Penang. NUENERGY Holdings Berhad, formerly ILB Group Berhad, has received a conditional voluntary takeover offer from its single largest shareholder, Fertilizer Group Agro Bulk Holdings Sdn Berhad, for the company's remaining shares at 60 cents a share. FGV Holdings Berhad will be suspended from trading on Bursa Malaysia's main market at 9 a.m. on August 25, marking the final step towards its privatization following the Federal Lands Development Authority's successful takeover bid. And last but not least, AGMO Holdings Berhad, which has been listed on Bursa Malaysia's ACE market since August 2022, proposed to transfer its listing to the main market. Well, that's a wrap for Morning Bell Updates with me, Ainu Jaria on KleverStock. Thank you for choosing us, investors. Stay tuned for the next live coming soon.